नमस्कार, मैं हूं सिद्धार्थ चतुर्वेदी, रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर विश्वविद्यालय भोपाल से और स्वागत है आप सभी का विश्वरंग यानी टैगोर इंटरनेशनल लिटरेचर एंड आर्ट्स फेस्टिवल 2020 में। विश्वरंग यानी टैगोर अंतर्राष्ट्रीय साहित्य एवं कला महोत्सव एक अद्वितीय पहल है आईसेक्ट ग्रुप और रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर विश्वविद्यालय भोपाल की, जिसके अंतर्गत हिंदी एवं अन्य भारतीय भाषाओं समेत भारत की कला और संस्कृति के रंगों को एक वैश्विक पटल पर रखने का अनूठा प्रयास किया जा रहा है। इस वर्ष 2020 में विश्वरंग का द्वितीय संस्करण का आयोजन किया जा रहा है, जिसके अंतर्गत न सिर्फ भारत बल्कि विश्व के 16 अन्य देश भी हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं। वर्ष 2020 हमेशा कोविड पैंडेमिक और उसके जो इम्पैक्ट हमारी सोसाइटी पे पड़ा है, उसके कारण जो जीवन शैली में बदलाव आए हैं, उसके लिए हमेशा जाना जाएगा। और इसी के चलते हमने ये निर्णय लिया कि इस महोत्सव में भी हम कुछ महत्वपूर्ण चर्चा के सत्र ऑर्गेनाइज करेंगे, जिसके अंतर्गत कोविड बाद के भारत और कोविड बाद की दुनिया में क्या क्या बदलाव देखे जा सकते हैं, इस पे हम लोग चर्चा करेंगे। तो इसके लिए और ज़्यादा केंद्रित रखने के लिए हमने 4 महत्वपूर्ण सेक्टर्स चुने हैं, जिसमें शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, उद्यमिता और कला और संस्कृति शामिल रहेंगे। तो चलिए आज के सत्र से जुड़ते हैं, जहां पे शिक्षा के ऊपर हम लोग बात करेंगे और कोविड बाद के भारत और कोविड बाद की दुनिया में शिक्षा जगत में क्या क्या बदलाव देखने को मिलेंगे, इसकी चर्चा और इस पे प्रकाश डालने के लिए हमारे साथ शिक्षा जगत के आज एक्सपर्ट्स यहाँ मौजूद हैं। तो अब सीधे उस चर्चा सत्र से जुड़ते हैं और सुनते हैं कोविड बाद की दुनिया और कोविड बाद के भारत में शिक्षा में आने वाले बदलाव पर एक परिचर्चा।
Thank you so much and welcome to this very important and pertinent discussion. This is one of the discussions being organized by the AISECT group of universities in a series of multiple learning and discussion sessions which we have organized in the last 6 to 8 months, basically to understand the entire implication of the changes, the opportunities, the challenges which the COVID scenario is playing out, especially in the education sector. So all of us know that one of the sectors which is got the possibility of getting most disrupted is the education sector. On one hand, the sector is going through a lot of challenges. On the other hand, the sector has also seen a rise of edtech players, an exponential increase in the online learning and digital learning initiatives, and several such pilots which are now coming light from various parts of the country. So today, in about an hour's time, we would try and discuss various challenges, facets, and opportunities of this topic. I'm very happy and privileged that we have I would say 3 stalwarts of the Indian education ecosystem today with us. Let me take just a moment to briefly introduce all of them on the panel today. So first of all, we have Dr. S.S. Mantha, very well-known figure for all of us in the education ecosystem. He is an eminent academician and an able administrator. He was earlier the chairman of the All India Council for Technical Education, or the AICTE. He has been at the forefront of making a lot of radical changes during his tenure at AICTE, and his area of expertise lies in robotics, AI and control theory, and so on. Dr. Mantha also has the distinction of having developed the National Vocational Education Qualification Framework, or what we know as the National Skills Qualification Framework today, which helps in promoting skill-based competency modules to be integrated into the formal education certification level. And this itself is the bridge on which a lot of traffic is going to pass in the coming years. So thank you, sir, for that. Next, we have, thank you. Next, we have Mr. Naveen Mittal with us. Mr. Naveen Mittal is an alumnus of IIT Delhi. He is currently the Commissioner, Collegiate Education and Technical Education at Government of Telangana. He is an experienced person at the administrative services with a demonstrated history of working in the public administration and public policy. He also has a strong administrative, professional record with, handling various departments such as skilling, urban development, public finance, IT strategy, management, and leadership. Welcome to this panel, sir. Privileged to have you with us. And then we have a very senior leader from the digital transformation, digital HR, and OB field, Mr. Antarpreet Singh, who's currently handling the digital initiatives at the Indian School of Business. He's an edtech innovator and techno business strategist, well-known thought leader, and a researcher and a faculty, and has 35 years of diverse experience with global corporate universities. So privileged to have you also there with us on the panel, and thank you so much. So now, without further ado, let's start today's discussion, and I would like to bring in Dr. Mantha into the discussion first. So my first question to all of you would be a little bit of opening remarks on what has played out in the last 6 to 8 months in front of all of us, and what have been your immediate takeaways from this entire situation in terms of some key trends which now we can see are probably taking offshoots and are there to stay with us even in the future. So Dr. Mantha, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, in the current scenario, what has happened is a lot, like we all have been talking about, a lot of disruption in the conventional mode of education. The classroom teaching has been disrupted. Like, students have not been able to go to classrooms and have a face-to-face learning experience. Though it has given way to some kind of online education, though a lot of gaps exist within the online mode of education, even as we are speaking today. But in the absence of anything better, probably that acted like a bridge to those programs which are maybe in the second year, third year, final year, and so on. Now that also has given rise to several initiatives by the edtech companies, and in the form of content creation, content which is useful in terms of hand holding and so on. For example, we may look at Coursera, we may look at Udemy, or maybe edX, and there are so many others in the higher education space, and even within the school education space, there have been so many providers, almost 4,000 odd edtech companies which have been active, and about 20 of them doing a lot of serious work. So in a way, the online education has been pushed into the system rather than seamlessly organically building into the system. It has been in some way compressed. The development cycle has been compressed, and it has been literally pushed into the activity. So it has certainly helped people understand the online learning and its mode of delivery and so on. The pedagogies are different, but unfortunately what has also happened is there is no training for the teachers. They also have been pushed into the activity of continuing teaching. In a way, teacher also has to learn in the process. And because of the lack of training, some teachers who have intrinsically value in the proposition, they have managed to do it, but most of the teachers have been struggling and so on. Now, the online education itself needs a lot of other technology. For example, you need an LMS, you need a robust LMS, learning management system, which puts together several things, creates data analytics from students' perspective, from a teacher's perspective, and so on. So all that comes as a package. but it's not only the online, the content that is being driven and so on. Now, one very important problem area in that space is also to separate out the slow learners, the fast learners, and in this asynchronous mode, you really do not know who is attentive and who is not, and who is gathering what and so on. That's where the LMS makes some amount of difference, and that's something that is required. The other important area is technology being applied science. You can't possibly have everything online. So the connect between the hands-on skills and the classroom teaching, that's somewhere missing, and people are talking about simulations and so on, but simulations have only a limited approach. So with these opening remarks, there are obviously a lot of other things which we really have to worry about. The digital divide that we have. There are several people who cannot, who do not have smartphones, who do not have laptops.
Yes.
And a lot of connect will have to be created by the government in this space, by providing devices, by providing connectivity, by providing data access points, and so on. So a lot of that is probably work in progress, but this is something that has come to stay and probably will integrate into the regular curricula, probably in a ratio of 30-40% for more time to come. Thank you.
Right. No, thank you. I think that was a wonderful opening, address, and you've touched upon most of the facets related to this, be it the digital divide or the strong use of a robust technology infrastructure, the LMS being one of the components, and so on. But we'll come back to some of these a little more in detail as we move around. I would like to now get Mr. Naveen into the discussion, and probably taking on from here, Naveen ji, and also giving us a state level perspective. You handle a very important portfolio in one of the let's say fast growing states within the country. So apart from your opening remarks, can you please give us a little bit of a state level perspective also on what's going on, and how are state governments gearing up for making this shift which is coming in front of us? Over to you, Naveen ji.
Yeah, so thank you, Siddharth, and very good evening to all of you. I think Dr. Mantha has very brilliantly explained the whole scenario, not just at the national level, but I would say at the global level also, because most countries are grappling with the pandemic, and the education system is one of the sectors which has been greatly disrupted. But as is said, that every crisis is also an opportunity. I think this is also a time when the education sector is also undergoing a great deal of transformation. In fact, we always used to complain that education is a sector which is very, very slow in imbibing the technological changes which are taking place at the global level in the past. But I think what this COVID pandemic has done is that it has really accelerated the level of adoption of technology. And as Dr. Mantha was telling, almost we see this whole ecosystem of technological interventions which is now getting developed. Of course, some are a little higher on that curve and some are behind. But then I think a lot of people are trying to do and trying to improve their solutions to address the issues which we are facing, not just today, but also looking at the future in mind. Now, coming to the state level perspective, I would say that there are a couple of issues here. One is the issue of the pandemic response as such, as to because right from if you look at Telangana, almost from 15th of March, our education institutions, the classroom learning has stopped. And educational institutions are shut down practically. No students are coming or allowed to come to the institutions. And it's been almost, if you say, we are nearing almost 8 months of that. But I think a couple of things again happened. One is that most institutions have started some sort of online teaching per se, in the sense initially it was to do with the teachers taking classes through some of these publicly available platforms like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or some of these platforms. And we were also very pleasantly surprised that sometime around the middle of April, we decided that because of lockdown was almost nearing a month, that let's start online online teaching. And then we passed on these instructions to our institutions and also to our teacher. And to our great amazement, within about 2 days, almost 93% of our faculty was up and taking online classes. So what we found is that there was a great deal of enthusiasm and also a kind of adoption of the technology at the teacher level. That was a I would say a very pleasant surprise. Because we thought that you really need to do a lot of training on the platforms for teachers to come up. But then, I mean, within about 2 days, as I said, more than 90% were online. From the student side, we see two distinct responses. One was during the lockdown. During the lockdown, we found a very large percentage of students were actually taking online classes. Almost our experience is that on an average, something like 60 to 65% of the students were online. I mean, and we can compare this with almost an average attendance of just about 70% in a classroom. So if you really look at classroom attendance, the student attendance online was pretty good. And there was a great deal of enthusiasm in covering the previous semester syllabus. But as the lockdown closed or as the unlock period started, we found the student numbers online started coming down. The reason for that was access to a device, because during the lockdown, they were able to get their parents' device or maybe a smartphone, which somebody in the family was having. But when the unlock process started, then this lack of access to the device became a real bottleneck. Coupled with that, also, I'm again talking about some of these public institutions and also to great extent private institutions, because most of these institutions cater to the students of the rural areas. So coupled with the access to device was also issue of accessing internet also, and reliable internet, in the sense good high-speed internet, and the cost of accessing the data, in the sense we were getting complaints that within about 2 or 3 days the packages which they're having are getting over, because video data requires a lot of bandwidth, as well as consumption of data is pretty of high order. So these are the issues which we found from the student side. And I think this also tells us that one of the priorities in the future, if we have to really accelerate the level of online learning at home, because in institutions there is a good bit of infrastructure available in terms of at least desktop computers or some bit of bandwidth. But if you have to ensure that students access online education, and especially the rural students and the students from the I would say the bottom half of the society, we really need to also stress on some kind of availability of devices and availability of internet bandwidth.
Right.
So that is the second thing which was our experience. The third thing is also, as Dr. Mantha again mentioned, we also at the institution level, because till now they were looking at some of these free opportunities in terms of Zoom or Microsoft Teams, but they are not very conducive to going in for a long-term online teaching. So you need some kind of a learning management system and a mature learning system, which not just serves the needs of the teacher but also the students.
Right.
So I think that is something which governments, we have looked at some things, and for example, Google Classroom is one of them, which is working, and there are a couple of others. So we are in the phase in which we are trying to test them and see which one is good for our needs. I'll probably stop here and then maybe come back for some kind of a follow-up question.
Right. No, so yes, of course. I mean, one clear point is the entire overnight acceleration to adoption of new technology and learning, which was brought about. And there, I would say, as you were also saying, that we probably were, more resilient than expected, and we turned around with quite a good strength in terms of all the teachers and trainers adapting, and even the learners showing, good enthusiasm to come online. It's now for us to see how much of that is sustained going forward, and that's the key. But this is a good point where I would like to get Mr. Antarpreet Singh in. So, sir, we have heard most of the points on what has happened and what went right or wrong on the field for the last few months. And now we're talking about online learning, digital infrastructure, robust technology infrastructure, and the future. So, what does the future look like? And you, heading the digital initiatives at ISB, all of us look up to ISB for new pilots all the time. So, what are some of the learnings which are coming home now with the pilots which you have done, and will online learning really make a big dent in the overall education ecosystem, or will it fade away with the COVID fading away in 6 months or 1 year or 1.5 years time? So over to you, sir, for your
Yeah,
comments.
thanks, Siddharth. So first of all, I'd like to mention that Dr. Mantha and Mr. Mittal, brilliant comments. So I will take the thread from here. I will like to divide from my side, what I bring to the table into two parts. The how part and the why part. The how part is how to deliver. And as Mr. Mittal pointed out, COVID has brought a lot of misery for the mankind, but at the same point in time, every challenge also brings in an opportunity. So this is the how part which I'm addressing, and the opportunity has been transformation which would have taken 10 years for us to get to that point where we could get in whatever way, I mean, in a hurried manner or whatever manner we were thrown into into the pond or sea or whatever with all the challenges, and we were required to learn to swim and to swim effectively, efficiently. uh, I have been I'll come to the why part little in a minute. I always give example of margherita pizza and an exotic pizza. Online has been like a margherita pizza when you don't have a choice. That is the cheapest pizza on the menu, 80-90 rupees, and it has only cheese and bread. You have no choice. So, I mean, it is good. It tastes very nice because there is no other choice. So, digital learning, and when I say this, I mean, I've been speaking almost every week. So, people say that it's very awkward that you are saying that online is not sustainable. I say, yes, I have been championing digital. I've been a global CXO for 20 years, and having worked in digital technologies, in core R&D software technologies for US networks, I say digital is not, online is not sustainable. It is just like margherita pizza. We have to bring in the layers. We have to bring in the toppings, olives, mushroom, broccoli to make it
Right.
wholesome. How we can make it wholesome is through a blended recipe, and every institution has to create. I mean, nobody is going to tell you that this is the standard way how you should have a blended learning recipe. So this is the how part. Now, why is very important. I have been spearheading this digital economy and youth empowerment initiative in various states, including Telangana, Andhra, UP, Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, last week Uttarakhand. Also programs for MSMEs last week for entrepreneurs in Telangana. The why part, and this is very important for a discussion. We are looking at a huge crisis. I mean, NEP has given us a good direction. Our digital economy is growing at 36% CAGR today. And we have a dream, Minister of State, Minister of Electronics and IT had put it in the parliament, a brilliant report which in collaboration with McKinsey has been sort of formulated, which is achieving a $1 trillion dream by 2025. There are 65 million jobs, 6.5 crore jobs, new age jobs. How would we support those jobs? That is the why part. And these jobs have to be sort of managed, have to be manned by a younger population in the age group of 25 to 30, 35. How are we going to, I mean, whether we talk of online, we talk of blended. So that is the other, I think then the discussion would move from how to why part. And I will reserve some of my comments to be brought in to the discussion a little later. So I will wrap up this part of my arguments by saying that the how part we are now learning. There is a lot of design thinking which is required for training faculty. Portfolios have to be aligned with the new reality, and we say it is new abnormal or it's new normal. I mean, this is a reality. I mean, whatever term you can, I mean, you cannot now go back to the way we are changing our emission norms from BS4 to BS6. You move to BS6. Now you cannot go back to BS4. So you have to now reorient your education systems in a way that you have your own, you craft your own blended learning recipe. And this is all the how part. And I think I don't want to sort of put everything in one go, but the why part, how are we going to restore imbalance between talent and supply? There's going to be huge imbalance. 6.5 crore jobs we cannot support with the kind of system we have, but we have taken directionally some very, very good steps. So let me stop here, and then I will like to speak on the why part a little later.
Right, right. So thank you for bringing in those points into the discussion. And of course, the future skills or the exponential rise of digital economy is for all of us to see. I mean, Amazon, for example, has recorded their growth in the last 6 months as much as they had recorded for the past 10 years straight away. So e-commerce, online learning, online healthcare, a lot of these sectors are at the cusp of being disrupted. But coming back to our discussion, and as you mentioned, I was going to bring in two other very important aspects into the discussion, and probably we'll start with Dr. Mantha again. Two aspects and your view, sir. One, of course, the new education policy. When no discussion would be complete without bringing that into picture. So your top takeaways, or what are you most excited about from the new education policy? The top brief points. And second, the entire focus on or the refocus on the skilling and vocational training, which the NEP also talks about. But beyond NEP also, and in your previous experience, if you have any directions for us to note or to share, that also would be welcome. So NEP, and what are you most excited about, and skilling and vocational training, and what is the course correction, and how can we accelerate that? Because all of us know the importance, but how can we really reach there? So these are the two topics where I would like to get you in. Over to you, Dr. Mantha.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as far as the new education policy is concerned, there are several structured interventions, and it does talk about a lot of initiatives which have a potential to improve the outcomes. Now, when I say outcomes, it's not merely the teaching learning outcomes. There are several other outcomes from a learning part. So it addresses them in some way. But having said that, an important intervention that they have indicated is the multi-point entry exit within the system, and a 4-year bachelor's program where you could possibly drop out after every single year, accumulate the credits at that point of time. and then go out and maybe work and come back and again rejoin the system, and thereby whenever you get the total number of credits that are required to define your degree or diploma. So that kind of flexibility has been provided within the system, which is very similar to the national skill qualification framework that we actually have, which is your other point. But having said that, the today's education has 3 years of a 3 years bachelor's program, and whether one gets into the art stream or science stream or commerce stream or whatever, they if they drop out at some maybe after 2 years, maybe after 1 year, their qualification probably is still 12th, and therefore their scope of working within the within the industry space is highly limited. But this does provide an opportunity for a recognition of a certain certification after every year. But having said that, the basic difficulty here is how do you design the curriculum for this kind of structure? For example, if I say that a person can drop out after 1 year after 12, then obviously there must be some competency-based skills built at that point, and the industry must recognize that, and they must be able to provide a certain job role at that point. So therefore, designing the curriculum, implementing it, initiating these competency-based skills, and also measuring them and satisfying the industry that yes, my candidate is available to be, accommodated at certain job in certain job role. Now this is a very challenging part, and this has to happen for first year, second year, third year, and fourth year, and things like that. So unless the same dynamism is built into the employment sector, the implementation can become a real challenge. But yes, there are good things about it as well. And that's what probably the opportunity that has been provided must be explored. So that's about NEP. There are many other initiatives within NEP. I don't think we should get into all those initiatives.
Yes.
There is a lot of stress on research and research institutions, and teaching and research and things like that. The debate of whether a teaching institute, predominantly a teaching institute, which also does research, or a predominantly research institute which also does teaching. Now, which is the best combination? Or you should have primarily teaching institutions and primarily research institutions. These are all matters of detailing, and they depend on the ecosystem that you create, the world into which these systems fit in. Ultimately, that defines what must happen within the institutions. An ideal combination probably should be both coming together, because the experience can always rub off on the teaching aspects, and teaching can improve so that's one part of it. The funding and all, they are talking of a lot of funding, but the point is, right from late 60s, we've been talking about 6% of GDP. The current NEP also talks about 6% of GDP. So the absolute number may be large, but in real terms, it's a difficult thing to manage all that is said within the NEP, within the funding that they're talking about. Now, 6% of GDP is fine, but actually spent is hardly 2.4, 2.5. It has never gone beyond 2.8%. So these are some of the concerns that must be addressed in a very rational fashion. The second part that you spoke about is skilling and vocational education.
Yes.
What has happened is our current higher education is completely devoid of hands-on skills. It's more of classroom learning, or maybe a little bit of value addition that happens for those who are enterprising enough. And then they go and fit into any kind of job that is available. Now, if you fundamentally look at the job scenario, you have primary markets, employment markets, where you have produce from the earth, and you need people who can, fit into mining area, who can fit into farming and those kind of requirements. And the secondary employment sector talks about manufacturing, and unless your manufacturing grows, it cannot absorb all the technical labor, that the technical persons that you create. And our manufacturing has been growing only at about 17%, whereas it should have actually been twice that. And the tertiary sector, which is basically the service sector, provides almost 60% of job creation possibilities are there. So therefore, what happens is, because there are less number of jobs in the other sectors, people tend to get into the service sector all the time. So therefore, you will find an engineer also migrating into a service sector, probably the other disciplines also getting into service sector. Therefore, at the end of the day, you will find that there is a whole lot of misalignment in this, and there is a the right kind of fit doesn't really happen within the industry, and there is an under utilization of the skills that are
Right.
That's the current scene. Now, what is required to be done, therefore, is start skilling early within the school system. Maybe skilling maybe in 9th and 10th, 11th, 12th, starting from 9th standard. And every year, the certification that you have should include a certain amount of hands-on skills and a certain amount of education. The education part must act as a bridge if the student wishes to go into the regular, normal education mode and so on. So building only skills into the framework doesn't also help in the sense that people may not be able to get into the regular mode of education. So every certification must include both skills as well as education, act as the next, get into the next level of certification where the skills are of a higher order. So getting into 10th, you have a higher order skills, getting into 11th, much, and so on. So by the time you get into the final graduation phase or something, you have skills which are a combination of skills. Today, the market doesn't give you a job with just one skill. What is needed are a combination of skills in a certain sector so that he can be productively employed within the industry space. So the entire concentration on giving skills in, let's say, in welding or plumbing or those kind of things, it really doesn't help. You need a judicious mix of skills and so on. So basically, the National Skill Qualification Framework looks at these kind of things. It also provides you multi-point entry, exit, go out, accumulate credits, come back, and so on. So the future if you look at the German model, it works on similar models, and they have very, very nicely integrated the skill, hands-on skills part into the education. That's the reason you get the best of the engineers probably. This is something that's accepted the world over. You get from best of the engineering innovations you get from Germany. Their technology is the best, their hands-on skilling is the best, and so on. So probably there is something that we must relate back into the kind of training that they provide at the school level or the college level, and so on. So that's the skilling part, laying stress on providing skills very early and taking them to the higher order level of skills and so on is a very good idea and must be. So what I'm getting at is we must aim to institutionalize skills in our school systems. Today they are running parallelly, they don't meet, and so on. Finally, for those people who would want probably only skills and not so much of education and get into the higher education space and so on. For them also, the National Skill Qualification Framework provides enough opportunities to move with higher order skills within the skills space. So therefore, there are a lot of good things about the framework, but what I have seen in the last few years is its implementation has been faulty, and its its outcomes have not been really understood. The practitioners, the implementers, and the people who actually handhold. There is a lot of gap in the understanding of the framework in all these areas. Thank you.
Right. No, thank you. And thank you for highlighting some of those points about the NEP and about the skills. And as I said, this bridge has been constructed, which can take you from the skills to formal education or bring you back from formal education to skills. But how much do we really use that bridge is now for us to see. And that is very critical if we have to go towards the dual mode of education and training model, which is much talked about. So I would like to again get Mr. Naveen into discussion. And we've heard the highlights of NEP, sir. From the state level, again, I mean, many states are going about having their own task forces on NEP and trying to interpret how it will be implemented in their own states. So anything on that front from your state or any other state which you know of, which you can share? And then followed up with the skilling and vocational training integration. So you also handling, you also, being the collegiate education commissioner. So any pilot or any idea on integrating this into the college or the government college, level, and having the skills being interwoven with the curriculum. So on these 2 points, sir, your quick views, please. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. So first of all, I must say that NEP is a very, very, I would say, a comprehensive policy, because this is a policy which has come after almost, I would say, 34 years. Last one, as we all know, was in 1986, and it has been in making for now close to 5 years. So I think it has brought in a lot of good ideas onto the table, and I think if we can implement it fully in the coming years, it would be again a transformation of Indian education system. Now, coming to the implementation of it at the state level, again, the policy has these two components. One is, of course, the school education level, and the other is the higher education level. School education level, a lot of it requires to be implemented at the state level, because in most parts of the country, or in most states of the country, I would say the ratio of the students who are in the state board to the central board on an average is something like 80 to 20. Almost 80% of the students are in the schools affiliated to the state boards, and just about less than 20% are in the schools which are affiliated to the central boards. There, a lot of work is there for the states to do to really bring in their own school education system in alignment with the new education policy. But if you really look at the higher education level, I would say that the most of the work is required to be done at the central government level, because it requires creation of a completely new regulatory structure. As we know, though, there's a idea of creation of this Higher Education Commission of India, which will have again the 4 verticals. One would be the regulatory part, the other second would be the grants part, then the accreditation part, and then the quality part of it. So I think most states are waiting for that regulatory structure to come up, and also a lot of recommendation of it also has to flow from the regulatory entities which are either there presently, for example, the UGC or the AICTE, or the newly proposed HECI, because there are some very, very, I would say, far-reaching ideas. For example, Dr. Mantha has talked about multiple entries and multiple exits. So let's say in a 4-year program, after 1 year you can exit with a certificate. After 2 years you can get exit with a diploma. 3 years would be a bachelor degree, and a 4-year would be a bachelor by research or honors, or engineering programs are already 4 years. So I think in order for those certificate or diplomas to have market recognition, you really need to get that clarity from the national level regulatory entities. Otherwise, the work at the state level would not give it the recognition in the market. And also there is this concept of kind of multidisciplinary institutions. Again, right now our institutions are watertight. For example, engineering colleges are standalone engineering colleges, our medical colleges are completely standalone medical colleges, our agricultural colleges are standalone agricultural colleges, and the rest of the colleges are mostly focusing on general degrees like arts or sciences or commerce. So in order to again bring in the multidisciplinary or to get that into practice, again you need the UGC and the AICTE to come together, or the new structure to come into force rapidly. Now, I mean, having said this, there are certain things which obviously the state government or the state level can also do, and the universities can do. One of which is again flexibility, in terms of flexibility of the courses and the flexibility of the curriculum, and a lot of things which are talked about in the on the skills side also. And I think in Telangana we have been doing a lot of work in this regard, and with the coming in of NEP, especially first the draft policy came in and then the final policy came in, we have moved into that direction quite a lot. For example, this academic year, we have given almost complete flexibility to the students to choose their optionals, which was hitherto unavailable. And there was a lot of resistance. We tried to do it last year, but there was a lot of resistance from the faculty, and because they were used to this watertight structures. But this year, when NEP has come in, we found that there is a lot of acceptability, and we have been able to push it through and get in. Some work which we have also done in past couple of years, and we have also accelerated this year, is this also integration of some of these skills which are relevant to the market, or skills which we thought are basically the peripheral skills or the extracurricular or the co-curricular skills. We have sort of brought it into the curricular domain. Things like, for example, basic computer skills for art students. I mean, it was kind of an add-on, but not part of the curricular framework. And I mean, also the basic management skills or the basic managerial skills have been now moved into the curriculum part, and students are now getting credits for those courses. Apart from that, we are also focusing a lot on the online courses also. For example, both AICTE and UGC have now permitted 20% of the courses to be done online. So all our universities have now adopted, and we also heard that both these entities want to increase it from 20% to 40%. But that is something which at the state government level, we are waiting for those notifications to come in, so that the students can be given more liberty to do that. Right now, again, another issue with that front is that right now those courses are limited to the SWAYAM portal, which is that universities have to get onto the SWAYAM, and which is a highly regulated portal. But I think one reform which we need to do is to also bring in some other major platforms also, and the courses on those major platforms, whether nationally or internationally offered, to be also kind of recognized for those online courses. So there is quite a bit of work which is happening, and I think next couple of years would be really exciting to see this transformation which is going to happen at the national and the state level.
Yes, right. So thank you for bringing that in. And yes, the challenge seems to be that although we now have all the right policies and the pointers and the right ingredients, now how it is actually going to be implemented, and whether we are going to be able to put all those pieces together from top to bottom, that is really which everybody in the education system is going to be looking forward to. Let me get Mr. Antarpreet into this discussion, and from you, sir, specifically, if we talk about NEP, it talks about introducing these future skills at a very young age at the school level, and it also talks about future skills and the entire focus on the digital infrastructure strengthening. There is a National Education Technology Fund also, which is being talked about. So how do you foresee the digital skills and the future skills becoming important in the overall scheme of things for India, not just for metro students, but for tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 learners as well. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, very, very good point, Siddharth. So before I answer your very, very insightful these questions are, people always ask me why you always talk of digital economy. I said this is a parallel economy in the making, and I give a very simple example, and then I'll answer your questions. Today, if you take a rupee, your digital economy is 6 paise. It is 6%. It's $200 billion. 5 years from now, it's going to be 25 paise, 25% of the total GDP. 2030, it will be 40% of the GDP. So when you have 40% of the GDP digital, you have a parallel economy. Are you preparing for that parallel economy? Put money where the mouth is. So in terms of the skills, I mean, I was, I think 10 days earlier, the leading university in North, there the B schools of that university had participated. And so while I was asked, I mean, sharing with students a 1 hour talk, so the students asked me about digital adoption. And I said, India is the front runner in terms of digital adoption in the world. It is going to be at number 1. It is number 2 at this moment. So their question was, what about tier 2, tier 3? I mean, you must be talking in terms of major metros. So I said, no, digital adoption is good, but it is for you. Do you take research projects? Do you take internships? Do you take summer projects in going to a village and see that what is the digital adoption? I'm sure your 90% of your marketing students will take market research to estimate biscuits demand, which has been, I mean, when I did my MBA in 1985, and I see the projects, same projects, I mean, being repeated over and over and over and over. And another very important thing I would like to mention that there's a general misconception that digital is IT. It is all about network, infra, some part of LMS. Digital is a mindset. Digital is a culture. Digital is when we talk of digital economy, it is not just about IT. I mean, we talk of the STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, maths. I mean, I was a guest faculty with a leading B school, and some of the students who were specializing in law, they said how digital would be useful for us. So I said, you have to, when the digital economy grows, the question of having IPR protection, the question of having the digital will lead to a lot of IP creation, and you have to specialize in a legalistic framework to protect that IP. So whether it's a commerce student, whether it's a law student, whether it's an art student, I mean, I know Google has been hiring a lot of people who have what we call right brain, this thing. I mean, I have been an engineer, and I have been a left-brained person all through my life, analytical and seeing everything from the prism of mathematics. There is when you are seeing the Zoom user interface, you say, wow, this is so nice. These are the skills which humanities and art students bring to the table, and we have to leverage. And now linking it with the NEP. And I think the two esteemed speakers have spoken a lot about and very insightful things they brought to the table. NEP has created a framework. It has created a climate. Now it is for every university, every institution to create flexible portfolios, which are conducive to those digital skills, because you are staring at a crisis with 6.5 crore new age jobs to be. People say there are no jobs in the market. I said the job roles are vanishing, not the jobs, because your skills are related to the outdated job roles. And 6.5 crore new age jobs, and those jobs will include full stack developer. This will include your forensic finance, auditor, with digital content creation in universities, setting up media labs in B schools and universities, digital healthcare, tech-based farming. All these are 30 themes which are part of that blueprint which Government of India, Ministry of Electronics and IT with McKinsey has brought and has put it for the implementation to so that the country realizes the dream of going to that $1 trillion. And we are, the way we are growing at 36%, we'll reach there. But we'll reach there only if we have skills to reach there. And these skills, NEP has provided a climate or a framework. Every institution, which is every stakeholder, every university, every B school, every technology school, and we also have to think of digital as an integrated skill which cuts across the boundaries of commerce, arts, IT, medical, farm,
Right.
all the agriculture. So it's not that only an engineering college deploys digital. An agriculture university should also deploy digital. A law college should also have digital skills being taught. And here the flexible portfolio, as Dr. Mantha very nicely provided the whole the kind of framework which is available where you can exit early, such flexible learning paths. And these learnings should be related to our dream of achieving 1 trillion by 2025 and 2 trillion by 2030, where we will be a half of the digital, will be half of the total economy. And that is a great opportunity with the kind of human capital development we've got, with the kind of internet penetration we are seeing, 3x multiplication in the internet users from 60 crores now. This is going to go to 90 crores. We have Jandan accounts, 90 crore accounts, or whatever, 85, 90 crore accounts. We have Aadhaar, more than 100 crore. We have your digital transactions, which are growing at an alarming pace, a 10x in last 3 years. Your e-commerce, this thing has gone up by 5x in last 3-4 years. All
Right.
these create jobs, and from where these jobs have to be manned by youngsters in the age of 25-35. From where do we get these youngsters? From our educational institutions. But if our educational institutions are teaching case studies of 1985, what happened in USA, or 1990, what happened in US in a particular company, that is not a case study we require. We require a
Right.
case study. What happened to Flipkart? What happened to the software as a service SaaS company 2-3 years earlier? How can I learn those skills? Because some of your students are also going to be entrepreneurs contributing to the digital economy. They are not going to
Right.
take up those 9-to-5 jobs. So with all
Right.
this thing, I think it is very, very important that, I mean, I'm very happy, Siddharth, that you've organized this very lively discussion. This is the real burning issue of today. Are we prepared to cater to that ecosystem of 6.5 crore new age jobs? Are our universities ready? Are our higher educational institutions, B schools? I'm not talking of elite institutions. By and large, 950 plus universities, tens of thousands of engineering colleges, medical colleges, B schools. Are we ready? And
Right. Right.
NEP can only give us direction. So once you have the direction, but I think you have to walk by yourself. NEP can only show you the path, which it has shown.
Yes. 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 No, yes. I mean, that's a good call to action also for all of us, that, it's not going to be completely written in an SOP or a manual format. Now, this is the overall direction, and then rest of it has to be grabbed as an initiative by the educational leaders and implement in their respective institutions. As we move towards the final leg of our discussion, I would like to, get one very different kind of a question, but connected to education itself. So, Dr. Mantha, I would like to get your views on this. So, the NEP talks about instilling a pride in being Indian, and of late we have also heard, reclaiming the lost pride of being an Indian, or inculcating all these values back into the educational ecosystem. So, how important is this entire shift according to you, and how do you think will this integration with the education ecosystem be taken by and large by the learners? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you are probably referring to the mode of learning, the language of learning, and
Yeah, there are many sub-components to it, but the overall direction which the policy also talks about, so.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, there are several directions that the policy has, in fact, given. There is a shift from the work. Also, I mean, whatever work is being done, it's no longer the business as usual. It's something that there is an underlying message within the policy itself. But having said that, everything is really linked to the kind of funding that is available. We all know that education is in the concurrent list, and therefore what happens is a lot of policy directions may come from the center, but actual implementation happens at the state level. So therefore there has to be a synergy built between the kind of understanding that the state has, the understanding that the center has, and then build whatever mechanisms are required in order to make the policy, implementable. So they are some of the things. But one important factor which people have repeatedly talked about within the policy is also the language issue. And they have said that the education within the schools, at least the initial years, must happen in the local language. This is a kind of shift that has happened within the policy. Now, now that's what is written in the policy. Now let's look at what is the reality. Even today, many other schools, they do in local languages. They teach in local languages. For example, when I was at the AICTE, Tamil Nadu and Bihar, there was the entire diploma. 3 years after 12th, you get a diploma, and the entire learning in diploma was done in the local language, even in Tamil Nadu. And this has a certain amount of repercussions. It also has certain amount of plus points and so on. As much as saying that one should be connected with the local language and roots and so on. Our systems are not so evolved that we can possibly learn in Tamil, probably in Tamil Nadu, and go and work in Maharashtra. The employment, the low level of employment is all basically the local language driven. So therefore, saying that education can be done in local language is one thing, but providing an opportunity to be gainfully employed, with opportunities all across the place, that's another problem area. Now, if you look at the entire industry scene, most of the people migrate to either Hyderabad, they migrate to either Bangalore, either Mumbai, or to a lesser extent Chennai. And beyond that, there is people don't, and to some extent to maybe Ahmedabad these days. But beyond this, there is nothing happening. So therefore, unless the ecosystems are also, developed to absorb these kind of ideas, we will only be promoting probably ghettoization. People once having learned in the local language will have to survive in those places, and so on. So therefore, though there is a policy directive which says that this must be encouraged, they must be certainly encouraged. But how far can they be taken in terms of employment is a different aspect altogether.
Right.
So there are several other directional shifts within the policy, but maybe for want of time, if we have time, we can certainly discuss all that. Thank you.
Right. So thank you for that. I won't repeat the question, but I would like to get Mr. Naveen's views also on this entire issue. On one hand, the intent is laudable, and we would like to restore the confidence, the pride of all the learners in not just Hindi, but also the other regional languages, and make that as a primary mode. But there are all these, practical and operational challenges which Dr. Mantha has pointed out. So, how do you see this panning out in the near future?
Siddharth, it's a very, I would say, very complex issue per se, in the sense. I'll tell you, a couple of years I had gone to Japan in one of my previous assignments, and we found almost the highest level ranking Japanese engineers. They were talking only in Japanese, and all their formulas or everything was in Japanese. But then issue is that it's a very the country is a very single language. Or there are examples of European countries also, let's say Germany or France or Switzerland, Italy, who work, or Spain, who work in their local language. Now, but the issue is that most of these countries are single ethnic or single language kind of countries. But India is a very multi-ethnic and a multilingual society. So issue here, as Dr. Mantha has said, is that in order to ensure mobility from one place to the other, or the fact that Indian economy is getting very strongly integrated into the global economy, and we find that the ability to speak English language or to work in English language is in fact one of the strengths of our country, which is helping, or which has helped, I would say, the digital economy or the digital technologies to come, or IT technologies coming into India, and India became a global powerhouse in IT, and that has been our strength. Now, question is whether we really don't want to go back on it or not. So that is one part of the issue. The second part of the issue is also, we can always talk about pushing it from the top, but then the question is, what do parents want? And I'll give you two examples on that front. One is the example of our neighboring state, which did a survey on language in which parents want their children to study. And if my memory serves me right, I would say that the percentage of that was above 95, 96% of the parents wanted their children to study in English language and not the local language. I mean, it's one example of a state. I mean, we can have also counter examples. I'm not trying to justify the issue, but only trying to talk about the complexity of the issue. And I can also give another example of the higher education sector in the state of Telangana. Most of our degree colleges were offering only languages and courses in the local language. And we found that there were very, very few kind of takers, or the capacity was not fully utilized. 3 academic years back, or I would say 2.5 years back, in the academic year 18-19, we actually did two things. One is reorganize all our courses in our government colleges, and two is started offering those courses in English language. And what happened? In a single year, our strength went up by almost 40%. And this year, we are crossing almost, I would say, 60% increase vis-a-vis pre-2018-19 admissions in our colleges. We have not done away with the local language courses, but we have provided kind of those courses in parallel. And I can also give you a bit of statistics in terms of what our state profile is in terms of language. So if you look at BSc courses, because we do statewide common admissions, we have a platform called Degree Online Services Telangana, which I would say is one of the most advanced admission platforms in the country. And all our admissions in the state take place through this platform. More than 93% of the students in our state in BSc, they opt for English language.
Mm-hmm.
Close to 89% of our BCom students opt for English language for pursuing their BCom. For arts, the percentage is little less, in the sense it is close to about 55%. But if you look at BSc and BCom compared to BA, it's close to 90 or upward of 90. and that shows that the
Right.
students want to pursue in a particular language is because they think that pursuing that course in that language will probably help them more in their job search in the future. And it's also kind of their aspirations of how they want the career to be. And in the arts, it's again more of to maybe to earn a degree and continue doing something which one was doing, or maybe not for the going to the job market. So that is the reason why they choose to pursue. So I mean, these two data points would probably give you an understanding of what parent aspirations or the student aspirations are. So talking about one thing from the top and looking at something from the bottom are totally two different things, I think, altogether.
Correct. Correct. No, and yeah, in a pluralistic society like and country like ours, a top-down approach we've seen doesn't work. And of course, the consensus building and an acceptance from the bottom up also is required for any of these things to get successfully implemented. And this issue in particular is quite a layered issue, as you have pointed out, and the data also points out in the same direction. So, in continuation, as a final comment on this subject, and after that, I will, move towards wrapping it up. Mr. Antarpreet Singh, your views on this particular issue, if any. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I have heard Dr. Mantha and Mr. Naveen Mittal. So I am not qualified to speak. I don't specialize in this language, and this is a very touchy subject. But I would only like to say, from the digital, this thing that the null pointer is a null pointer in Chinese, Japanese, English, UK. Null pointer is a null pointer. So I have seen, and there was this on the lighter side in Punjab, even 10, 15 years earlier, the grandmothers will say that, in Punjabi, they will say that your grandson has done C++ or Java. So grandmothers knew what is C++ and what is Java. So I would say that when it comes to these digital and new age jobs, the importance of language, I mean, every language is it's like a mother. I mean, it's very dear to everyone. So, but we are a diversified country, and eventually when it comes to those new age jobs, and I've seen by myself, I've been an entrepreneur for some time. I've seen, I mean, the basic skill, it is the skill which matters. It's not the language. I mean, I've seen even in the US research labs where I worked, I have seen some of the coders, they are so brilliant. They will come up. I mean, I remember in Philadelphia, we had a major breakdown of the entire national network. And the boy who solved this problem, he was a Telugu speaking boy. He could not even speak 2 sentences of English. But the kind of solution he provided, everybody said, wow, this is the. So I would say that, I mean, keep politics aside, keep other things aside. I mean, it's the skill. It is the problem solving. It is this thing. I mean, I would say that what is the ultimate objective? That is what is more important. I mean, language is whether I speak in Punjabi and I am able to code better than somebody else, or vice versa. So it is more important is I mean, I will like to put more importance to the skill. Of course, there is an elementary education, there's a secondary education, there's education, and this is step by step. When socialization happens and we learn skills. So I have not much knowledge on that part, but about I on the last mile where it comes to you becoming a successful entrepreneur or taking up a job, I would say that then the importance of language, whether it's English or Punjabi or Telugu or any other language, is I mean, it is just just a you eat in a steel plate or in a other paper plate. I mean, it's the dish which matters, and that is the skill which matters.
Yeah. Right. No, very aptly put, and very well summarized on this front. So, although we could have gone on with this topic, and I just feel that we have probably only even we have just started, and we could have taken each of these for a discussion at length. But for the paucity of time, I'm afraid we'll have to bring the discussion to a close. But before we do that, I would like to, maybe get one final recommendation, if I can say so, or advice from your side, to the general, the education ecosystem at large, the educational leaders, the top management or the middle management in the educational ecosystem, private or government sector. What is your advice to any of them? What should they be focusing on right now? What should they be thinking about or planning for right now? If you can just give one, top advice or recommendation each, that will be great and very helpful for all our audience as well. So, Dr. Mantha, what should be the top mantra? What should be the top advice?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, I'll just take 2 minutes to
Yeah.
do this. We had. I mean, I while studying, I used to do coding in Fortran, and we started off with that. Today there is so much of stress on coding, and White Hat Junior, their advertisements and their the target segments they have, in the market, the children of 7 years, 8 years, and so on. There's so much of stress on coding and so on. And most of the time, I felt, now what is the shelf life of this coding that we're talking about? I mean, so going back a little, when I was doing Fortran, we moved much later into C, and most of the time into C, because it had a great interface which it allowed between your hardware and the outside world. Now, from that we graduated into Delphi and Visual Pascal and so on, and we continued our journey, and things kept moving, and these individual elements, they remained into a certain very specialized segment. And today, if you really, and subsequent to that, we also looked at rapid application development tools, RADs as we call them. And the back-end coding, every coding became automatic, and people, there are systems which used to generate code, and you only have to worry about pseudocode and things like that. And today, when people are talking about coding and attaching so much of importance, and everybody getting into coding, and I start feeling as to what is the shelf life of this? What kind of job opportunities are we really looking at? Is the scene going to be the same 3 years from now? So I mean, to a large extent, I still feel I tend to agree with Antarpreet when he says skilling is what matters. But then skilling, everything doesn't stop at skilling. There must be an ecosystem that accepts these skills and builds it into a nice integrated stuff. So you just can't say that. I mean, I wish we had something like a Unicode for humans as well. Instead of so many languages. Why can't we relate in terms of some? Ultimately, it's something that I mean, we could do that for the machines, because it's only at the very basic level, it's only 0 and 1, or whether some voltage potential difference exists or doesn't exist. But that kind of thing, if we can build it into our systems, probably it's that day probably would be truly a true link that builds a bridge between the digitalization of all activities, and the human beings.
Right.
Having said that, yes, I mean, as far as the advice is concerned, we probably will be looking at online education for a long time to come now. Though the percentage of what percentage of it should be online, and what percentage of it should be face-to-face will always be debated. In the technical education space, I believe about 30-70 would be a good combination, which will stabilize in the technical education world, and which we call as blended learning. So
Yes.
probably blended learning is the future, and people must invest, the educational institutions the student population, the faculty, they all must invest in learning those tools which make this happen. And so therefore the content management, the learning management systems, the the ecosystem that you build around creating good content, that must be extremely important as we go by. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that. Naveen sir, the final comments or advice or words from your side?
I would say we need to keep the student in mind ultimately. I mean, in fact, I've seen too many times that, we think something, but the needs of the student or the interest of the student are something. And I think NEP to a great extent is trying to address that need. So I would say for all the academic leaders and the entire leadership in the academic world needs to really keep the interest of the student in the mind as to what his future is and what is it that can help him in order to achieve the goals which he or she sets for himself.
Right. Antarpreet sir, from your side, any final words or comments?
Yeah, sure, Siddharth. So from my side, the overall guidance for the education ecosystem is, as I always say, digital classrooms and digital in the classrooms. So don't treat digital as something separate. It is embedded into our genetic, the DNA. This is so digital classrooms. What COVID, circling back to from where we started, COVID gave us an opportunity to transform and transform faster. And so digital classrooms and digital, even when we are teaching face to face, as Dr. Mantha earlier in his talk said about simulations. I mean, at ISB, we have been the first B school where we brought in simulations integrated with the case studies. So, I mean, these are some of the things, and NEP has provided us a map. It has provided us a direction. COVID has accelerated the things, but eventually we have to get to a point, and for that I think we have to challenge status quo. That should be the mantra: challenge status quo. And digital is not IT; it is a culture. So if we start seeing digital as a life, not as something which is only for IT or network administrator. And even when we are teaching face to face, there will be a blend of face to face teaching and digital. And the reach can be, I mean, you are teaching in Hyderabad, maybe some students from Boston are also listening to your lecture. So
Right.
that is something, I mean, this next decade is going to belong to us. I mean, the whole world is watching us, and it is up to us. I mean, we can be our friend or we can be our enemy. I mean, this is up to us.
Right. No, wonderful, and a completely appropriate, positive note to end this discussion on. I must say, it has been one of the most engaging discussions I've had in recent times. In between the flurry of webinars which have been flying around for the past few months, and I could feel that a lot of information and good content was packed in the last 1 hour, and a lot of audience. And once we restream this, a lot of people would have many ideas and food for thought coming out of this. So we navigated all the important aspects, right from the focus on skills to starting at a young and early age, to the challenges of implementing NEP or any other aspect of NEP in a plural society like India. The entire focus on the digital, the urgency in terms of the digital adoption, the rapid rise of digital economy, particularly in India, and adopting a digital mindset rather than treating that as just one of the components. I think those were some of the highlights coming in from this discussion. So on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Mantha, Mr. Naveen, Mr. Antarpreet, for joining us. Hopefully, we would be able to get on to another discussion and take up any of these topics or subtopics and discuss about it in detail. So till then, I would like to wish all of you safety, and all our audiences also good health and safety in the coming months. So we would like to end our discussion here. Thank you once again for joining, and look forward to connecting with all of you once again soon. Take care, be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.